Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We come to you virtually from Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, and as you'll hear today, reaches far beyond. If you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this here is the podcast for you. This is where street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Whedon, and I'm joined by two co-hosts today, Linda Popke and Phil Simchich. Whenever we have a fifth Wednesday in a month, and that happens to be today, we gather the hosts to discuss an interesting and timely topic for business. Michelle Baumberger is on travel, so she can't join us. So we've got Phil and Linda. Listen, everybody, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts: iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube. Linda and Phil, what are we?
We are ubiquitous.
We're ubiquitous. I'm glad Linda was listening. Phil must have been crossing the border or something on that.
I was reading the script. I couldn't see it in the script.
I was reading the script. So see what happens when we don't actually have a guest. All heck breaks loose. So listen, we come to you from a whole bunch of different cities. We're in Atlanta. We're in Charleston. We're in Pennsylvania, which I know is not a city, but it's central PA. We're getting together there in Dallas and New York, Boca Raton, bunch of great places. We just hope you like Seattle the best. And as I mentioned, we don't have a guest today. It is May the 30th, which turns out to be the fifth Wednesday. We get a couple of those every year. And so Phil and Linda have joined me. Michelle, like I said, is on travel. Maybe she's listening somehow live stream. If so, hello, Michelle, we miss you. Today, we're going to talk about, I think what we might just say is the elephant in the room, politically, emotionally, current events wise, and business. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. For those of you watching on YouTube, you see that Phil is representing the Ukrainian with the Ukrainian flag and all that's going on in Ukraine. We're going to talk about that a little bit today and talk about how that may be impacting your business or business both now and in the future. So before we dive into that, first of all, welcome Linda, welcome Phil. Let's have some fun.
All right. Hi, Dan. Hi, Linda. Great to be here.
Hi.
All right. So, and let me just get started, Phil. I'm gonna pick on you because you are sporting the Ukrainian flag. I know you're of Ukrainian descent, and we're gonna spend most of the time talking about it related to business. But obviously, even though you're probably don't have family there, I don't know for sure, but it's got to impact you in some way. Talk a little bit about what the last month or so has how that may have impacted you.
Yeah, so I don't have any direct family, but my family has come from Ukraine. One of my grandmothers, Baba Simchich, she was from Ukraine. And my uncle Peter, who has since passed away, when he was in his 80s, he was entrepreneur, in addition to a school teacher, principal, and superintendent. He ran a business called Tours to Ukraine. And so, like in just more than a decade ago, he was still active in that business, taking people from North America and Europe through Ukraine and through where our families did come from. And then my brother and my dad are both past presidents of Canada's National Ukrainian Festival, which was hosted and still is in my hometown of Dauphin, Manitoba. And my mom sang in every choir imaginable in English or Ukrainian around for miles around. So very important part of my culture, my family. When I went to kindergarten, the rumor is I knew more Ukrainian than English, but that has since passed. So yeah, very stressful to see bad stuff going on, and then just sort of the news and media overload and overflow, and it's like, well, this isn't productive. I can't handle this, and so tuning that down, and then just starting to look at this from a perspective of what's going on and why, and what can we learn from it, and hopefully those are some of the things that we'll be discussing today.
Yeah, Linda, let me ask you, As we were getting ready for this show, we were just kind of talking a little bit, and you mentioned the impact on businesses for this, and somebody might think, well, how is it going to impact? Well, people are impacted like this, just like Phil said. You might have employees that are from Ukrainian descent. They may have family members there. These could be business owners. The reach is pretty wide. How do you think businesses? What do you think the impact on businesses has been, whether they have Ukrainian employees or folks there or not?
I think, Dan, there's a couple things. I mean, first of all, there are the people who have Ukrainian employees there. Most of us have seen the picture of that poor woman and two children who were gunned down in the street. She was the CFO of a Silicon Valley company, but she lived in Ukraine. So that impacted us. Ukrainians have traditionally been very, very good software engineers, software developers. So a lot of the software products that you and I use are supported by Ukrainian developers. And I actually had a situation last week where one of our apps, we had something that was not right with the website. And we got a response back saying, we're so sorry that we can't respond as fast as we normally do, but our developers are in Ukraine and they don't have the resources. And it's like, right. Yikes. Well, my website is fine. Don't worry about it. But so I think that's the first thing is, there are people that we know there, but then there are also businesses that have been doing business and have relationships with Ukrainian people that we don't even know beyond that. And then, of course, there's the things that are happening to businesses because, the price of gas has gone up. Certain supplies we can't get because of what's going on over there. So that's the bigger impact. But I think I'm just amazed at how many people I didn't know that Phil was from Ukrainian descent until this all happened. So I think a lot of people who are really impacted that we don't know about.
Phil, let me ask you this, and I guess I'll ask you. You're up north of the border. You're not necessarily as impacted with United States politics, but just with how different countries like the United States, like Canada, are dealing with this. There is, as Linda kind of mentions, whether it's gas prices, whether it's concern about cyber warfare, and we'll maybe talk a little bit more about that because that's the warfare of the 21st century, I believe, for the most part, things like that. What are some of the maybe hidden potential perils and ramifications for small and medium-sized businesses that might think they have nothing to do with it, but really does impact them?
Yeah, well, it is a little closer to home than most people might realize because Canada has the largest population of Ukrainians living outside of Ukraine or Russia.
Wow.
So they're everywhere. Now, to answer your question, it's how dynamic the business community is, and we've seen it over the last couple of terrible years with COVID, and now we're seeing it with military action, which when you look at it from a strategy perspective for Russia, like a country is usually as strong as its middle class, right? And now Russia's enduring a brain drain. Linda's already talking about, well, we've got developers that don't have resources or don't have access or what have you. And so, and we all need to, especially small businesses, we need to be as independent as possible for the key activities of our business, and then ideally have one or two sources for other important parts of our business just as a backup, right? And so, yeah, cybersecurity, small and medium businesses get hit because they'll still be targets for ransomware, right? And we're all impacted by supply chain and the price of gas. And my daughter and I were having a conversation over lunch about my next vehicle. I'm weaning myself off 8-cylinder turbocharged, right? And even weaning myself off 6-cylinder turbocharged, and said, well, maybe I'll look at a hybrid. And she says, what about an electric vehicle? And so there's all sorts of transitions and actions that we can take for things that are in our control that can protect us and B, reduce our stress, but C, give us a viable future.
So I'm just to talk really quickly about the cyber part of it. In fact, it's I don't know if it's ironic. It's just a part of it. I just finished a LinkedIn learning course uh, in uh, in January that just published a couple of weeks ago, and one of the courses, one of the videos within the course was politics and how things around political actions will have perils, and one of those is cyber, because we know that Russia is obviously the one who's made the thrust into Ukraine, and they're taking the brunt of sanctions and all of that. Well, their response and a huge fear among the cyber community is their response is to attack us through cyber, which they were doing already. But what that means, and Phil, you said it well, small and medium-sized businesses are not, they're the low-hanging fruit, because the larger a business you get, the Fortune 50, the Fortune 500, they've got as intricate cybersecurity and people on staff and all of that, and passwords and all of everything. The small businesses tend to not, and you can do a great deal of damage. And I think of it this way: you said something about only as strong as countries as strong as its middle class. I think of us in the United States and in Canada, we're as strong as our small and medium-sized businesses, because there's way more of us than there are. There's a reason there's a Fortune 500. There's only 500 of them. There's businesses all over the place. So Linda, let me ask you this: you live in the cyber central, you live in the Bay Area. Talk a little bit about any concern you have, or what you'd share with business owners who aren't maybe taking that threat as seriously as they should.
Well, it's interesting because I am in Silicon Valley and I have clients who are in cybersecurity, so I am paranoid about that to start with. But I think we need to make sure as small business owners that we don't think that to your point, that this is only going to happen to the big guys, because yes, it's great to go after a Fortune 100 or 500 company and get a ransomware if you're a hacker, but you can cause chaos, which it might happen with what's going on in Russia, less to go get money from ransomware and more to cause chaos with all kinds of businesses who don't have the security protocols. They don't have things locked down. They have passwords that are 1, 2, 3, 4 password or something like that.
Right.
So it's time to go ahead and to really look at those things and say, how do I make myself hardened? How do I make myself more secure? And to do that. The other thing I just wanted to say about adversity and dealing with this, I think we have to look at the bigger picture. This thing about Ukraine is coming to small businesses on top of 2 years of COVID. And so our businesses are stressed, our employees are stressed, our customers are stressed. As small business people, we need to be aware of all that. So I start every conversation when I talk to someone with, how are you doing through all this? Certainly through COVID, I had people who said, oh, gee, I'm much better now that my husband's off the ventilator. Yikes. You've got to get that stuff taken care of. But now it's like, how are you doing with what's going on in Ukraine? Well, we're doing okay, but we're not getting our supplies that we thought. Or someone like Phil, gee, I had family that came from there, or I know someone who's there. And you've got to have that empathy with your customers, with your employees, with your suppliers, because otherwise, they can't think about your business until they get past that, until they know that you can relate to what's going on in their lives.
Phil, I'd love to ask you to maybe comment and piggyback before we hit break, maybe piggyback on what Linda talked about.
Well, entrepreneurs are the modern day pioneers. Anyways, they don't have the safety nets of a fat cat pension in a Fortune anything company or a government company, or as I mentioned, my uncle was a school principal. Actually, my aunt and uncle and my mom and dad, 3 of the 4 were civil servants, and then they started their business, Clear Lake Lodge. So they don't have safety nets, and so we have to be our own safety net. And as I like to say, cash isn't king, it's the ace. And so the more cash you have, the better, because the more control you have, and we'll talk a little bit about this after the break in terms of adversity and causes of stress. But really, we want to take as much control as we can and like keep your feet moving. If you're feeling stressed, you're feeling stressed, acknowledge it, realize you're probably safe. And if you're safe, then keep your feet moving. So we've been under stress for a long time, and we will continue to be under stress. Life is hard for everybody, doesn't matter who you are. And we need to take action and do what we can to, like, we've got a lot of energy when we have to. I was in a triathlon, and I always used to consistently finish in the bottom quarter. And one time I heard footsteps coming up back from me, and some guy was chasing me. And I thought, well, what the heck, I can run. And I was surprised at how fast I could actually run. And I beat him, and he just about croaked. And so like the message there is we have it in us. And often we don't know how strong we actually are until our backs are up against the wall. And our backs are not up against the wall compared to a lot of people in the world right now. So we just need to realize that, appreciate that, and then act as if they are and take action.
So the action we got to take right now is we're going to take one commercial break right now. We're going to spotlight all of our great sponsors. And when we come back, I'm going to do a little bit of a kind of our own hot or not, or plead the fifth with our co-host. We're going to talk a little bit about how employers should be helping out their employees at this time. So don't walk away. We will be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Seattle Shrimp Tank. Its sponsors are Leverage to Market Associates, SME Business Wealth Builder, Equinox Business Law Group, Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, Kitsap Sun Newspaper, BC Fitness Studio, and the Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show.
And they are terrific companies, and talking to two of our terrific sponsors and co-hosts here, Linda and Phil. What I want to do is dive into this a little bit more and talk from an owner perspective. And this is part of the whole dealing with adversity portion of it. This may take even a little bit bigger than just Ukraine. We're taking, Phil just mentioned and Linda mentioned kind of a 2-year run of this. What are ways that employers, or first of all, let me ask this, and Linda, I'll ask you, what is the responsibility of an employer of a small or medium-sized business or firm or organization? What is the responsibility to the employees in any way to show support and to make things available to them? And if there is responsibility, what are some ideas that you have that they can be of help in helping them overcome and deal with some of this adversity?
Well, I think the way to answer that, Dan, is to look at, we're hearing about this great resignation, and employees are leaving, people are leaving in droves, they're hiring signs, you can't get enough people. And yet there are businesses that people are clamoring to work for still and that are doing well. And what's the difference? The difference is those are the businesses that are taking care of their employees. They make employees feel valued. They make them feel they're making a contribution. They take care of them, not just in terms of a good salary and benefits, but also in feeling that they do have this empathy for them. So I don't think it's a responsibility that is legal or moral, which it is, as much as it's good business sense to be there for your employees and do that. And how do you go ahead and do this? You start by asking questions. You start saying, how are you? What can we do? And then people want to do something. So, is there a cause we can support? Is there, can we do employee matching gifts to an organization? Can we help with a different way? Can we provide, a way to donate, whether it's food or blood, if it's a blood drive or whatever it is? But making employees aware that, number one, you're aware of their stress, and number two, that you feel what they're going through, and number three, that's part of the business and the brand and who you are, is that you do care about your employees, your suppliers, your customers, and the whole lot.
Okay. Phil, I'm going to ask you a similar type of question, and you can comment on what Linda did. But here in the United States, I don't know if it's true in Canada, but here in the United States, we seem to make everything political, especially if there's a global ramification to it. And sometimes those creep in, believe it or not, they creep into the workforce and conversations and such like that. For an employer, do they need to be concerned about whether it's social media, whether it's the proverbial water cooler? Is that something that they should be part of? Because I heard you say, you tune out some of it. Should you be concerned about how much the noise can be ubiquitous, whether it be on social media or from coworkers?
I think it's important for employers to realize that they do have a social purpose in society as well, where and like it's people there, and so people want to connect, and people have been disconnected for 2 years over COVID, and now they're, as the ones that are going back, they're connecting, but now they've got a highly negative topic to connect on, and I think it's important to balance that conversation and really talk about the positives that are going on as well, because it's way too easy to dwell on the negative all day long, which is probably why depression and meds are at an all-time high right now. Like, turn off the damn TV, right? Like, go read a book, go for a walk, do something productive. I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Can I ask you a question? Because we're living in a very virtual environment where employees aren't necessarily working in the water cooler. So you have a lot of employees and employers. Everybody's working from home. We're all working from home. So I think your advice is really good one. You may be working for somebody, but if you're sitting in your home office, I've got a TV over here. I usually have golf on, but sometimes people are watching other events and things like that. So your point is well taken. Do you want to maybe expand on that too? Well, sure. So for example, personally, I've stopped reading the news and so just digital newspapers, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, The Economist. I've stopped that in the morning. I just don't need that at all. And then I'll limit it to some evening stuff, but I don't need the horror and trauma of war. What I can handle is really the economics and strategy of the global economy and the impact and things like that. And so there's lots of interesting information there. So for example, I've figured out, as lots of people have, that some pretty good investments in the near future will be defense companies, especially American defense companies, right? Because everybody is now realizing there are bullies around the world, and you can't ask a bully not to hit you. And so we definitely need to be much better prepared for that. And so again, take action and control what you can control. Am I answering your question?
You are.
You are. Avoid going on a rant.
Yeah, no, you are. And I think, the world, and Linda, I guess I'll transition this to you. The world we live in is now so much different in how we work, and we can become isolated, and we don't have to necessarily be the business owner, but we could be the employee. We could, and you're kind of by yourself, and you get caught into listening to this, and something, especially like what's happening in Ukraine, can just seem it is so tragic, but it can lead you down to those kind of depression type areas. What I would ask of you is that as we look at dealing with adversity just in general, and maybe shifting away a little bit here at the end of the show from Ukraine and just talking about dealing with adversity. I work from a resiliency standpoint with employers. I'm going to ask you, what are some ways that you've seen some of your best clients and best companies doing to become more resilient, both from an organizational standpoint and from a people standpoint?
Well, that's a great question, because I think resilience is really the key word. We need to be able to bounce back. And with all the sadness and the horror and the terrible things we're hearing, I'm also seeing the other side, which are people saying, well, what's going on with me is not so bad. I don't have to flee my house. There are not rockets hitting me, and I don't have to worry about getting my kids out. Can I feed them, and am I going to be a refugee? So I think we need to be able to focus on the positive impacts we can make on the world. And in terms of trying to heal the world in our own little way. And I think if there are organizations that say, here's what we do, and Phil talked about there being a social purpose for organizations, we're not just here to make money, but we're here to provide value and to do something that matters. I think that helps your employees, it helps your your executives, and it helps your business because it makes you stand out. I talk about when you market to stand out above the noise, and it makes you stand out because you're the ones that people are saying, hey, look at them, they're doing something worthwhile. And we see that with large organizations, but in small communities and small businesses, entrepreneurs, we need to do that too. And that needs to be part of our DNA. It's not something we tack on and say, oh, let's go, it's right before the holidays, we're going to go pack food at the food bank and we're done for the year. That doesn't fly. It needs to be part of your culture and what you do. And then I think the more that this becomes part of what you do, the less that you are impacted by some of these things because you have that resilience built in.
Awesome. Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Dan. Everyone, make sure you check out all the replays on shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle and wherever you get your podcasts, such as iHeart, Apple, or Google. Please follow us on our show's social media pages on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Well, Linda and Phil, thank you for, I think, an important conversation. And this unfortunately, it's not going to be the last of these types of conversations. As Phil said, life and business and all of that is hard, and we've got to be resilient, as Linda said, and that's what we're going to do. And we're going to continue to be resilient. In fact, I have Linda back next week, our next show, Wednesday, April the 6th, Jennifer LeBlanc, who is Canadian, Phil, just so you know, you're not going to be alone. We have a Canadian joining us. We're going to learn more about her business, and very excited to do so. So please like us on Facebook, watch us on live stream, rate us, listen to us, review us, give us fives, all of that. So for right now, please be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.